The 8 Minute Devotion is on a 12-week break for the summer. We'll be back with brand new episodes on September 9th. Until then, enjoy this episode from our classic I Am series, first recorded back in 2019. God bless and have a great summer.
Hello, and welcome back to the 8 Minute Devotion. This is our Friday episode, last episode of this week, and we are looking at Jesus as the light of the world. We're in this series on the 7 I Ams of Jesus, and right now we're looking at the second one, where Jesus said, I am the light of the world. He is the only light for the world, and he wants us to live in his light. Yesterday we saw that Jesus is the light of the world. He helps us to see. He makes us see. Today, number 2, we see that he is light that rescues. He is light that rescues us. Have you ever been in a place that was really, really dark? You know, where I live in Metro Detroit, Clinton Township, Michigan, you can never really be in complete darkness here in Metro Detroit. There's always a light somewhere. There's always a light somewhere. You know, it can be dark at night, but never totally, completely dark, because we live in a metropolitan area near a city. It's never truly, truly dark. When I lived in Singapore, where I lived for 11 years, there was always light everywhere. It is never dark in Singapore. They say Singapore has what, they call it light pollution. It's the worst in the world because there's so much light in Singapore. It makes it a very safe city. It's a beautiful city. But if you want darkness, Singapore is not your place to go. If you want to be able to see the natural light of the sky, the stars, the moon, Singapore is really not the place, because it's a beautiful city bathed in light almost all the time. But so the places I've lived most of my life, it's hard to get real, true, total darkness. But I remember once visiting a place in South Africa, and this place is called Gold Reef City. And at this place, it's an amusement park, but they have an actual gold mine where gold can be mined. And it used to be an active gold mine. Now it's there as like a way for people to see how gold was mined in the past. And to get to the gold mine, we had to go hundreds of yards, hundreds of meters down into the earth in an elevator. By the time you've been in that elevator for several minutes going down, the darkness is so dark. You cannot see a thing. Now, this was before everybody had cell phones. Now people would probably take their cell phones out and ruin that darkness. But, the dark was so thick and so heavy when we went down that elevator. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. You could put it literally an inch from your eyes. You would not have been able to see it at all. The darkness was so real and so thick. Before we were saved, before Jesus rescued us, we were in a darkness exactly like that. We were in a spiritual darkness exactly like that, where Satan blinded us, where Satan entrapped us, where Satan enslaved us in a thick, thick darkness. Colossians 1:13, it's speaking about Jesus, the light of the world, and it says this: He has delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son. You see, his light rescued us from the domain of darkness. We were in the dark, but now we see. The Apostle Paul, he was explaining his testimony in Acts 26:18. He said that the Lord had sent him to open their eyes so that the people may turn from darkness to light, from the power of Satan to God. You see, Jesus, the light of the world, he rescued us from the power of Satan and released us to the power of God. We don't live in Satan's darkness anymore. We now live in God's light. We don't have to follow the instructions of Satan or do things in his way anymore. You see, we don't always recognize our true condition. We don't always recognize how desperately we needed the help of God. But the truth is this: outside of God's grace, we are captured by darkness and we are led by the prince of the power of the air. But God's light rescues us. God's light helps us to see, and God's light rescues us. And after we are saved, his light fights for us and brings us victories against the wicked one. So first, his light rescues us by bringing us out of Satan's kingdom into the kingdom of God. He brings us out of the abject darkness into the glorious light of his freedom. But then after we are saved, his light continues to fight for us and bring us victories. Psalm 27 and verse 1, the Lord is our light and our salvation. He leads us to victory. You see, it says here that the Lord's our light, the Lord's our salvation. He gives us the victory. He gives us the victory through his light. He drives away the enemy. We all know this, that when there is darkness, all it takes is one little light to drive away the darkness. Light is always stronger than darkness. Light, the darker the room, the more light that a little light can create. Light is always stronger than darkness. And the Lord is our light. The Lord is the light of the world. And I tell you, friends, if you feel like you've been under the oppression of the enemy, if you feel like the enemy has been attacking you, if you feel like you've been under attack constantly, the Lord is your light. The Lord is your salvation. And the Lord's light will drive away the attack of the enemy. One picture I have in my mind as I talk about this, it's that scene in The Lord of the Rings. If you've ever seen that movie, this is the third of them, The Return of the King. Of course, the author of Lord of the Rings, Tolkien, he wrote it with, Christian imagery in mind. And in The Lord of the Rings, there's that scene in the third movie when Gandalf carries his staff, a light comes shining off of it, and the enemy is just decimated. He doesn't have to fight. He doesn't have to use the sword. All he does, he lifts his staff, the light shines, and the enemy flees in every direction. That's what it's like when we follow Jesus. That's what his light is like. It drives away the enemy. It drives away the work of the enemy. The Lord truly is our light. The Lord truly is our salvation. The Lord truly is the one who shines his light and drives away the enemy. One more picture in Judges 6, Gideon's army. The story. The Midianites were mightily oppressing the Israelites. They were attacking them. The Midianites had victory over the Israelites for a long time. God calls Gideon to lead the Israelites to freedom. Of course, at first, Gideon resists. He doesn't think he can do it. He doesn't think he's the man. He doesn't think he's the right choice. But God finally convinces Gideon, go. God has Gideon cut his army down to just 300 men. And what weapons does God have this 300-man army bring against an army of thousands with iron chariots and horses? God has them bring a trumpet and a clay jar. In the clay jar was a torch. Inside the clay jar was a light. God had them break the clay jar, blow the trumpet, and shout. And when they did that, the enemy fled. The enemy was defeated. The moment that they broke the jar and revealed their light, the enemy ran away. Friends, reveal the light of Jesus that's inside of you. If you're saved, if you're born again, don't keep that light hidden. Reveal that light. Trust the Lord to shine his light. You will be victorious. The light of God will shine through you. The light of God will drive the enemy away. Jesus is the light of the world. He gives us every victory. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week looking at the light of the world some more on the 8-Minute Devotion.
Thank you for listening to the 8-Minute Devotion. We trust you've been encouraged and blessed today. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or by visiting the8minutedevotion.podbean.com. For questions or comments, please email us at the8minutedevotion@gmail.com or visit our Facebook page. We would love to hear from you.